Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hey, Evan. How's it going today?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Sorry about the slight delay there. I had back-to-back Zoom meetings today, so
No
you know
worries.
what it's
I
like, right?
definitely know how that goes.
Never ends, never ends.
Basically been
Awesome.
my week.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself and your organization, and let's go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So my name's Evan Mulcahy. I'm the Director of Innovation for Credit Union One, headquartered right here in Anchorage, Alaska. So
Nice.
we're the only credit union that's chartered to the state of Alaska. Everybody else is federally chartered. That's why they all have the FCU at the end of their names, but we don't. So that's pretty cool because that means that we only will ever operate inside the state of Alaska. We can't expand outside, which is like that's the Alaskan term for other states other than
Outside,
Alaska.
outside
We
is
go
the
outside.
term for the rest of the country.
Yeah, we all y'all, you're outside. So we can't expand outside of Alaska, which is really cool, right? That means that we're really, we've tied our fortunes to the state of Alaska and our Alaskans' fortunes. We've got, I think, 12 branches right now. Currently rebuilding one of them, which is pretty
Right.
cool. Um,
You guys are private. You guys are a private company, right? You're a private organization. You're not owned by the state or anything like that.
Now, we're not owned by the state. So as a credit union, we're owned by our members, our account
Mhm.
holders. And so they, unlike a for-profit bank or like a private bank, owned by some wealthy family somewhere. So our members get to vote for our board of directors, one member, one vote. And our board is not paid, totally volunteer based. So as a member, we own collectively our own financial institution, which is, I think, was pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool. So I have no experience with credit unions at all. So what makes you different from a bank?
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad. Okay. Right. Can you hear me pulling out my soapbox for you, Chris?
Let's hear it.
So credit unions are awesome. We just talked about that got halfway through the spiel. So first big thing is we are not for profit. So that means that obviously we have to make money, right? We gotta, I used to say keep the lights on, but with everybody working from
Yeah.
home, we have to keep the VPN up and running, and obviously lights on in the branches and stuff too.
Yeah.
So we have to make money, but anything you know outside of those operating costs, we return back to our members. So we don't care about the next quarterly call report, trying to inflate those numbers. We care about taking that money and investing it back in the credit union, into our communities, and into our members. So that's really cool. Another piece to that layer is because we're this member-owned, not-for-profit financial cooperative, is that we don't have to pay taxes like a bank would. So that's really
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah, nice little perk for
I like
that.
that.
Yeah. So basically, that puts us in a great position. That's why credit unions typically offer way lower rates on loans than banks do, and why we also pay higher dividends on things like savings accounts. So because we don't have to give Uncle Sam his piece, and we don't have to give, you know, a corporate board and all of our corporate shareholders, their dividends. So we just reinvest that back into our communities. The trade-off to that is that all credit unions are bound by what's called a field of membership. So basically like a definition of who's allowed to join. Uh,
Mhm.
Back in the day, credit unions used to be, you could literally just two people band together to create one. It's a little more complicated now. But they were designed to always serve some sort of underserved community. So rewind the clock back 60 plus years, and Credit Union One started as the Teachers Credit Union here in Anchorage. So it was serving the teachers of the Anchorage, it wasn't even called the Anchorage School District then. But that was who we served. Eventually, we grew and kind of rechartered through some mergers. And so now our field of membership is anybody who lives or works in the state of Alaska is eligible to join. But each credit
Oh,
union might
nice.
have a little bit differently. Yeah. Some
Yeah.
credit unions still kind of operate on that, we call them service groups. So if you've ever gone to like a credit union website and they're like, okay, you either need to be a member of like this religious organization or have this employer or some of the things, those are called service groups, or we call them SEGs.
Right.
So other credit unions kind of operate under that model. That's one of the benefits of being chartered with the state of Alaska is we have this nice field of membership. It's real inclusive. We don't have any weird maps drawn. It's like, oh, if you live on this side of the street, you can join us. But if you've got an odd number house, sorry, folks. Yeah, it's still
Really that specific? I mean, I've seen credit unions which have to do with companies that they work for, right? And particular, like you said, did you say caterers? Is that I didn't catch that? Did you say
caterers? No, I don't think so. I mean, there's got to be somebody who out there who specifically caters to the food service industry. Yeah.
no, who did you say the original group was? I thought I heard you say caterers. I thought, oh, what, a bunch of caterers got together in Anchorage and put this thing together.
Oh, our original group was teachers for the teachers for the Anchorage School District.
Oh, okay, got it.
Back before, I think they just called it it wasn't even called the Anchorage School District back then. It was definitely something more vague. But as the state grew, so did we, and so did Anchorage.
Right.
Yeah, so we started off as Teachers Credit Union. We merged with a couple other smaller credit unions. Alaska went through a pretty hard, difficult recession back in the 80s, and that kind of created a lot of consolidation in the financial space. But we're pretty lucky here in Alaska. A lot of folks have a real affinity towards credit unions. They might not totally understand that whole spiel that I just gave about why we're different, but they kind of get it on a fundamental level and have a good affinity for credit unions, which is pretty awesome. So you go other places and they're like, credit union, what? Yeah.
But it sounds like there's no real negative, right? Other than the fact that, you have to be a member of a particular group. But as long as you're a member of that group, then there's no downside to being in a credit union. In fact, there's upsides in that there's lower taxes and all that other stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, from a consumer perspective, it's straightforward. I think if you're looking after your bottom line, it makes sense no matter where you're at. Put your money with a credit union. Banks will like to tell you that the downsides are they'll try and hammer home stuff like, not as good digital services. And I say if that's really important to you, I guarantee there's somebody local who will check all those boxes for you. They would also say things like, oh, they might not have the largest branch network. I think the pandemic showed us that that's probably not as important.
When was the last time I went into a branch? I don't remember the last time I went into a branch.
Before March last year. Yeah. And haven't needed it since. So yeah, and a lot of credit unions, we can solve those problems in a couple different ways. There's a really cool organization called the Financial Services Co-op. So they basically, if you're a credit union, you can join this co-op, and we're a member of the ATM network. So any of our ATMs, if you're a member of a credit union that's part of the co-op, you can use our ATMs just as if it was branded as your home credit union's ATM. You can also do the same thing. It's called shared branching. Credit Union 1 is not currently a member of that network, but there are other credit unions in Alaska who are. So we think between our contact center, our mobile app, and our nationwide ATM network that we're plugged into, you probably don't really need to hop into a physical branch somewhere else. So that's where we're at. But other credit unions are part of that branch network. So you can go in and make a deposit into your account with a teller at a totally different credit union, but it'll make its way back to yours.
So what about on the regulatory front? Because I know a lot of banks, I work with financial institutions, and a lot of banks are really concerned about being able to do things due to regulation, bank regulation. Does all that stuff apply to you as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we do have different regulators. So banks are their main regulator is the FDIC. Probably if you walked into your bank, you see the little placard at the teller station. So our main regulatory body is the NCUA, the National Credit Union Administration. And but a lot of their regulations are very similar. They kind of typically move pretty lockstep together. Being state chartered, we also have state regulators who oversee us. So we have the extra layer of scrutiny, which is cool with us. We welcome it. We want to show everybody that we're good stewards of our members' money. So yeah, it's definitely hurdles. It can be a hurdle to innovation. I mostly see it as just requiring us to dot our I's and cross our T's. And really that comes down to just making sure that our member information is secure and that we're not, we're not doing anything too risky. We always have to remember that we've got our members, like literally their life savings in our hands. So if we're out there making risky moves or just kind of throwing caution to the wind and doing whatever we want, that's not being good stewards of our members' money. So we have to kind of keep in that path. And
Right.
I've got a bit of a marketing background, so I'm a huge fan of the idea that creativity is really born from those constraints. And so I see it as a way to, we can solve these cool problems. It's totally doable. You just have to have the desire to do it and the follow through. That's the other big part.
I think you're absolutely right that the constraints, force you to be more innovative. But where does that put you in relation to a bank? Like, I know banks have a lot of constraints, but does that mean you guys can be a bit more innovative than a bank, or same level, or see, you were going exactly where I was going. Like, where can you be more innovative? Can you roll out things that a bank couldn't do, basically?
I would say, that's a great question. I would say thinking big picture, I think the opportunities for banks and credit unions are probably about the same. I think if we look at the landscape of the industry, it's kind of they're kind of just different animals, right? We've got these huge banks, the mega banks spending hand over fist on R&D, dumping tons of money into like mobile app development, they're talking all the industry buzzwords, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics. They'll go through the list for you. Because they got the deep pockets, they can do that. Credit unions, right? We tend to be smaller, right? We got that field membership restrictions. And that duty to reinvest back into our communities and into our membership base. So we tend to be a little bit smaller, but there's still some big ones out there. Navy Fed is huge. So they can be pretty big. They can have deep pockets, that's for sure. But I think really the focus is different, right? Credit unions are really, our value proposition is really knowing you as a human being and knowing the communities that we're in. So to me, like the focus on innovation is more about how do we, as credit unions, move forward into the future and continue to grow, because we have to, but in a way that we don't lose that personal touch and that individualized service and those roots in our communities. Banks, it's kind of a trope to talk about how like they don't care about you, you're just an account number to them. And working at a credit union, we definitely see that difference. So while they're out there pushing all these cool new services, maybe even focusing more on like the kind of business banking, huge, they want to bank the businesses. We're over here saying, no, we want to bank the human beings, because that's where we can really make an impact. So just kind of, it's a little bit different focus, if that makes sense. Not so much necessarily that the opportunities are different, but really faced with similar opportunities, just our focuses are a little bit different.
Right. Well, it sounds to me that a bank, credit unions are doing what banks should be doing, because banks are, like you say, don't really care about their customers, especially in the consumer banking space. I mean, the banks that I work with, they're all like focusing on institutional banking and investment banking, and they want to get out of the consumer space because they don't see that there's any money in it. And the reality is, as a consumer, you're like, well, what are you actually doing for me other than, keeping my money in an electronic place? I could just as easily go to, a plethora of, fintech companies or, whatever, because I don't get anything out of it anyway. So if you ask me from a consumer banking perspective, the place to go is someplace like a credit union. So in that view, like what kind of innovative new products and services do you come out with that are focused on, the consumer in that way.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And thinking across the industry, uh, we talk a lot about how financial services, it's sad that we're really a commodity industry. Like we're not really so different from like a telecom or something like that. We're basically money movement infrastructure, if you want to think about it that way. And really, we can talk about fees, and we can talk about what type of digital services are packaged together. But really, a checking account is a checking account no matter where you go, right? You're gonna be able to put money in, pull money out, spend it on a debit card, hook that up to your Venmo or Zelle or whatever, do all that stuff. So really, they're kind of like all the same. So really, to me, the innovation where we see, I think the coolest innovation is back to those like personal experiences, right? Nobody, as much as we try, as much as folks spend brain power thinking about like, oh, how could we create like this really cool new checking account? They're always kind of, you know, I guess I'm old enough to be super skeptical when people talk about that stuff, and they announce it, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is a checking account, and maybe you kind of repackaged how you talk about overdrafts, maybe. And so it's like, oh,
Right.
we give you this flexible account. And it's like, oh, okay, no, that's just overdraft, a $200 overdraft policy where you can just dip down and pay back. Like this doesn't really new. It's been around for decades.
Yeah,
Just somebody put a nice,
branding.
somebody
So
put a
you're a
nice
marketing
brand
guy.
on it.
You've seen all that, right?
Oh yeah, totally. So to me, like the really cool part is at least in credit unions is the innovation around member empowerment,
Mhm.
and the personalized service. And I think that's what's really cool about Credit Union One's big focus is trying to do a lot more in both of those spaces.
Yeah, because I think the big disconnect between financial services and the customer is that the customer wants to, like the financial services companies want to, provide mortgages, or they want to have bank accounts, or they want you to get loans or whatever. And the customer is like, I just want to own a home. I just want to have enough money in my bank account left at the end of the day so I can get a beer, right?
Yep.
It's like there's a disconnect between the services that the bank offers and what the customer really wants to do. And it seems like the bank doesn't want to meet the customer at where they are and go, oh, we really want to help you, do what you want to do. But it sounds like you guys are closer to the customer, so you're better able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Rewinding the clock, probably about a decade. I was actually working at one of those mega banks, and it was definitely this culture there was one of sales, and it was, yep, shove this product down the customer's throat, whatever it takes, get them to sign up for it. And after making the move to the credit union space, to varying degrees, some definitely have more of an aggressive type of sales culture than others. I think Credit Union One is very relaxed with that, and it's much more focused on, like you said, meeting that member where they're at. It's knowing, what's next for you. What are your challenges with money? What do you want to do? What does that ideal future look like for you? And trying to help bridge that gap. So we talk a lot about, super proud of our lending program here at Credit Union One. Other places, this is another one of those little nuances that folks don't always get to appreciate. But if you go to a bank and you apply for a loan, what's the one thing that they're going to look at? It's your credit score and your income. It's like two things. Whereas if you come here, and we literally get referrals from other financial institutions when they turn folks down for a loan. Say, well, we couldn't help you. You don't have that A credit, and you're making money. That's cool. Maybe go see what Credit Union One down the road can do for you. So they'll come here and we'll say, okay, you got some colorful credit. That's life. It happens. Nobody sat you down and explained to you what a credit score is, how it's calculated, how to make it set that up for success. Nobody ever touched any of that. And life happens, right? But you're in a good place now. You're making good money. Let's see what we can do to get you into a loan. Or, worst case scenario, it's what can we, even if we can't get you what you want today, right? The new $40,000 car loan you want, and say, okay, maybe it's a smaller loan, or maybe it's if it's a really colorful credit situation, maybe it's cool. Let's get you on something like a secured card, and we'll follow up with you in 6 months once your credit score is better. Then we can prove in all of our underwriting criteria that yeah, we're totally comfortable giving you something closer to that $40,000 car loan. So it's really kind of that focus on the person, right, in the situation, instead of just, okay, here's the checklist. Do you meet 9 out of 10? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, no, I love that. So have you built products in that specific space to address those kind of things, or what kind of things have you done to like move those balls forward?
Yeah, historically, credit union ones had some pretty cool initiatives in the past. I'm totally gonna butcher the names of them. We've had some really cool initiatives to take folks of really modest means and get them into those loan products. I'm totally Fresh Start. That was the name of the program. So we've had like multiple different iterations of that right now, or sorry, over time. We've really found now, I think, that most of those folks who are in those sort of challenging situations don't really want like an extra product, and so it's much more about working with them to manage that money well, and to let them know that things like overdraft services can be used in in a smart way, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So it's like, if you know that that's what really folks need. Most of the time they just need like a little bit of flexibility to bridge them from that paycheck, right? Everybody, so much of the world lives paycheck to paycheck. To just really get them from that one paycheck to the next. So we can really help kind of coach them, because this is just baked into our spending accounts. Yeah, go ahead and we can overdraw it by a couple $100. That's one small charge, but if that's what it takes to get you, till that next paycheck and you get that big injection of cash, let's coach you through how to do that properly, instead of taking your debit card and just swipe for swipe for $1 here, swipe for $1 there. Each one of those incurring a larger charge.
Yeah,
So it's really about trying to coach folks on how to use these tools properly, and that's definitely a very credit union one type of thing. Other folks kind of just hands off, let them spend, let them take those charges.
Oh yeah, and
Collect
I'm a big fan of the whole do it for me thing, because a lot of times people, they don't have any financial knowledge. They don't have any financial wellness education. They don't know how to build a good credit score. They don't know how to do any of these things. Nobody really teaches you to do that. And if you could guide them in their path to, to do better, then that's great. And I think more financial institutions should do stuff like that. I mean, the only thing I can think of, the reason why they're not doing it is because they figure, okay, this guy is kind of a loss. We can't really make any money off of him. So let's just let him, flail around a bit. And in fact, we'll probably put him in some plan where they have to charge extra fees, which drives them under even worse. Sometimes I think that's what these banks do. They just just purposely put people in this tier where they try to make them fall apart instead of helping them rise up.
Oh, absolutely. I'll throw some big names under the bus. What was it? I think Wells Fargo and B of A both were part of some lawsuit where they would basically structure transactions. So rather than like making those charges happen as they come in, right, as you're swiping your card, they'll just like kind of hold them all, and they would this is like negative innovation. This is like, how can we milk people for every penny? It drives me crazy. But so they would like take all these transactions, and then they would reshuffle them in order of size so that they could fit the most transactions in, and charge you their overdraft fee for each of those. So
Oh man, I could see
yeah,
that. I can see that.
total,
Terrible.
in my book, total anti-consumer behavior. Like,
Yeah.
no, the person who knows, right, even if they know that they're going to get charged an overdraft fee, right, they're doing it a certain way for a reason, right? Kind of my economics background, right? Everybody's kind of got this kind of internal logic that makes sense to them, so they're doing it for a reason. And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
yeah, these mega banks were like taking that, throwing it out the window, and doing whatever they could to just fee the heck out of folks. But then they would also charge like a recurring daily overdraft fee. So like for every day your account is in the negative, you get charged an additional fee. It's like how how are you supposed to come out of that hole?
Exactly.
They just keep
Exactly.
trying to squeeze money from you. It's just
Exactly.
total, yeah. It's
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you don't do that. And I'm assuming credit unions are a little more friendly when it comes to raising people up instead of driving them down.
yeah, absolutely. We right, it comes back to that whole we're owned by our members. So it really, and our financial strength comes from the financial strength of our members. So if we're out there to try and just squeeze every dollar we can out of them, it actually is a disadvantage. It puts us at a disadvantage. It's not good for
Yeah.
us and our bottom line. So it's really about empowering folks and really helping them, yeah, really helping lift them up. And that's, whether that's a coaching session, whether that's cool tools on our website like credit score monitoring and coaching. It's all of that stuff. Really,
Mhm.
just what can we do to help folks manage money better? Because that's
So I'm
life.
assuming, like any other financial institution, you said you've got regulation, you've got all these things sort of keeping you back from innovating. How do you innovate in that space? Like how do you help to? I don't know if you had to do any cultural change when you started there, a culture change. I mean, how do you innovate in that space, in the space that you're in?
Yeah, it's really comes down to understanding what our members' needs are and figuring out how we can solve those in creative ways. And uh, and it's interesting, and again, back into that kind of idea of we're a commodity space. It's hard not to look around and just see what everybody else is doing and be like, oh, okay. Uh, you know, we were having discussions around growing our business banking portfolio, and we're talking about challenges for as businesses grow. I remember talking about how, yeah, all of these stages of growth for a business, right? Other FIs, other financial institutions have solved this with like a line of credit or a credit card or some type of like specialty
Mhm.
quotes loan program. I was like, but really, like we can think about these in totally different ways. The sorry, I keep thinking on this business banking track because it's a pretty fresh example. Yeah, we were talking about how, the struggle of like the business hiring their first employee, right? You have to make sure you've got the revenue stream. You're worried about how far in the future that goes. Right, another FI might think, oh, cool, we'll give you a line of credit, call it good. You can make sure you make payroll from that. We're like, well, like get creative. What else could you do to help solve that? Like, okay, well, what if instead of that we could do something easy like a grant. We could do something really cool like an incubator, right? If we know like marketing is something that small businesses really have an issue with, maybe we just hire a couple team freelancers and we basically like farm them out, or like a rent an employee type of thing. So it's really just finding what the needs of those members are and yeah, getting creative to innovate. Obviously, none of those examples I just mentioned are live today. This is very just kind of brainstorming sessions, but it's really digging deep and figuring out how to help folks.
Yeah.
And then to me, regulation, yeah, to me, regulation isn't the hugest hurdle. To me, really, the biggest hurdle to innovation is existing technology and capabilities of existing vendors. So we can dream up these really cool things. We can, they're well within what we're allowed to do as a financial institution. But when we go, we return to our vendors and we ask, hey, this is our cool idea. We would need your platform or your service or whatever to do this. And they come back and they say, that is a really cool idea. We're not in any position to be able to enable that. And okay, great, thank you. So you kind of have to table that idea for a little bit, or go back to the drawing board and brainstorm some more, and come up with something that will work. And I think we really did some cool stuff kind of at the onset of the pandemic last year that was much more in line with that type of, like, what can we actually do right now with our vendors in their position that really does help members. And so it's always possible. It just comes back to that determination.
Right. Well, I love the fact that you're actually thinking sort of like outside of the box of money, because I think that's where a lot of financial institutions sort of fall down. They're like, well, we're a bank or we're whatever. All we ever do is think about money, right? We think about supporting them with money. We give them loans. We give them accounts. We give them. They just think of it in the monetary terms, whereas the customer's like, how am I going to get customers in the door? How am I going to get word out? How am I going to get right? I mean, these businesses, they need help beyond just giving them some money and then letting them sort of flail around for themselves. But doing that incubator, giving them marketing assistance, stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, that's not going to break any regulations, is it? If you help them in those regards, I mean, I don't see any reason why you can't. And I love the fact that you're thinking outside the box, that you're not just a money provider or a money shuffler or whatever. You're going beyond that to really address what customers are looking for. And I think that's part of the whole design thinking thing, is like, if you put people in a room and say, well, what do you want out of your bank? They'll say, well, we want way more than what they're providing us.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's totally accurate. I really understand that the future of the financial services industry, right? If we're going to continue to exist as separate financial institutions and not, experience the sort of like mass consolidation in the industry where you can choose between one of your 5 mega banks and you're like, your one local credit union. Like if we're to avoid that future, we really have to shift our mindset from just being that money movement infrastructure and really embrace the fact that we're there to be the center of our members' financial world. So, it's not enough to just be like, oh, cool, here's your spending and savings and your debit card, so you can go to the ATMs and spend at the store. It's thinking beyond that, right? It's about coaching them through that credit score. It's about, in an online and automated way, it's about, it's about creating these experiences that really do help push folks forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
I'll let you pick it back up.
That's fine. Have you had issues bringing some of these new ideas to light internally? I mean, has leadership ever pushed back against some of this innovation, or are they pretty open to it?
I'm super fortunate. Credit Union One's leadership team is they've are always happy to listen to these crazy ideas. I don't think I've ever.
I don't think they're that crazy. They're not crazy at all. Yes, me.
Take it back a few years. I pitched some pretty crazy ideas. But that's what I think I love about Credit Union One is, even when I come to them with like the craziest of crazy ideas, they'll always listen, which to me is what you need from your leadership team. And everything is always at least considered as like a legitimate idea. Or at least they make me feel like it's considered. So maybe they just got really good poker faces. I don't know. No, they're definitely, they do listen. Yeah, I think sometimes you have to have them be your best partners in that innovation. You have to make sure that they understand what you're trying to do. Thankfully, we're all super aligned about supporting that member and really making sure that that member experience we deliver is top notch. This makes me think back to the beginning of the pandemic last March, when the shelter-in-place orders were really first starting to hit Alaska. In Anchorage, we went to full shelter-in-place, and the order was to basically, yeah, unless you're an essential service, shut your doors. So we were fortunate enough to be able to shift all of our branches to drive-up only service on a dime, which was really cool.
Nice.
Other financial institutions, they might have the branch like inside of like a Walmart or a Fred Meyer, Kroger, if you're not in the Pacific Northwest. Those don't have drive-throughs. So every other financial institution had to kind of make those calls on their own. But we don't have any of those. We shifted all of our branches to drive-through only service, and nice. As soon as that happened, me and our CTO kind of hopped on a Zoom call, and like, what can we do? Like, we've got tons of folks. We have, you gotta think about a branch where you walk in, you see a bunch of different teller windows open, but you might only have like 2 teller stations through the drive-through. This is how it's built. So, right, we've got extra staff. What can we do in order to create like these good member experiences? And so we brainstormed a ton of different ideas. A couple of them really bubbled up to the surface, and we was like, okay, cool. He's like, Evan, take these, vet them out with the relevant folks, come back to me with what people think is a great idea, and let's make it happen. And 2 of those initiatives are still up to date, which is really cool. One of them is Zoom appointments for member service, so folks can meet virtually and talk about their finances, loans, or real estate. And the other one was Inbranch Pickup. So just like you can do the Starbucks app, you can order your beverage ahead of time. You can go into our website, tell us what you want, pick the branch that you're going to go to, and go pick it up. They'll bring it out to curbside pickup service. Yeah. These were these were literally came out of a brainstorming session between me and our CTO. And from there, it was 9 days from that initial conversation to launching those, plus another, it's like a drive-up wait time service. It was pretty cool. We didn't need that one.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a crazy turnaround. That's amazing that you were able to do it that quickly.
Yeah, thanks. It was definitely, we couldn't have done it without buy-in from our CTO, Mark Burgess. He's really amazing. He's done really great work kind of reinvigorating our IT team here at the credit union. So we love him. He does great work. Yeah, and it was really just taking kind of existing, I almost felt like rummaging through the parts bin in the garage, like, what can we do here? It's like Zoom appointments. Okay, well, we already use Zoom internally for all of our meetings. And then through our partner, HubSpot, our digital marketing platform that we use, they were like, hey, this cool tool, folks can just book meetings on your website. Puts everybody on calendars. Yeah, they're like, use this. Cool, we're gonna use that. We use Asana internally for project management work. So we're like, hey, well, what if we just turn on a form on the website and let members punch in what they need? All of our branch management are already using Asana for other project work, so they're familiar with it. And so, boom, this is version 1 of our Inbranch Pickup service.
Wow, you guys use the same tools I do. I use Asana, I use HubSpot. I'm waiting for you to give me the next one.
Yeah, and that's right. To me, that's a huge. I was complaining about vendors and partners earlier, but those are ones that we're super happy with. Those are the ones who we come to with these crazy ideas of like how we want to be able to do this, and half the time they're like, "Oh, cool, yeah, we have that feature already? Just turn it on." But other times they're like, "Oh, cool, here's the steps you can take to do that." So yeah, those are really cool. This definitely speaks to kind of that nimbleness and having that buy-in from executives to say like, yes, this is what we know. We've turned off basically a whole channel of interaction for our members. What can we do to kind of recuperate some of that lost ground, some of that reduced member experience? Yeah, and we turned it around really quickly. Huge testament to having all of those platforms kind of already in place at the organization. Reminds me of that, was it Isaac Newton quote, standing on the shoulder of giants? Yeah, if we hadn't had these things in place, the work would have been much harder, but we could have done it, right? And these are examples of things, none of this ran afoul of regulation. The only thing we had to really do was to make sure that these systems were okay to accept and handle private, sensitive member information. So thankfully, we had already vetted all of these before we installed them, you know? So yeah, it was really easy to just kind of make it happen. And it's really cool. We did.
Very cool. Very cool. So before I go into the talk about the future, I want to look at your background. Are those next generation dolls? They're those little.
Oh no, sorry. Those are those are a gift from my grandmother. Rest in peace. They're Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah.
But they're the Russian rulers all the way. The little one is Tsar Nicholas II, and all the way up to not Putin. Sorry, was it Yeltsin?
Oh, no way. Well, that one it almost looks like Picard. And the one with the it almost looks like Troy. It looks
totally.
like literally small with like the third one in. Sorry,
that was
Star Trek fan. I don't know if you've noticed my Enterprise back there.
Totally.
I noticed you got the original motion picture lunchbox. Awesome! I've never seen one of those.
Lunchbox. Yeah, thrift store find number 472. It's
fantastic. So tell me about, so let's project into the future a bit. Let's talk 2031. It's 2031. You know, where are you going to be? Where's your company going to be? Where are financial services going to be? What do you speculate?
2031. Personally, 2031, I'm supposed to be a professor of economics somewhere. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, thanks. I got to get through a PhD before that happens. So I won't waste
economics was my degree, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, so that's me. But for Credit Union 1, I really see us making this shift now towards meeting members where they're at, not just, you know, in their financial journey, but Alaska is a huge state and really decentralized. Like, yeah, half of our population lives in one city, but that means the other half is scattered to the winds across the largest state in the union. So reaching folks and providing that awesome service is really difficult. So I see us really bringing that into the digital age. Right, we took like tiny little baby steps, you know, Zoom appointments for member service. We're rebuilding a branch right now that's kind of infusing a lot of this technology and that philosophy into that physical space, and that's going to be the springboard for us to take that mentality and those capabilities and really launch them forward even more. So I see Credit Union 1 as being, I already see us as being the premier financial institution for Alaskans. That's not going to change in the next decade, but I really see us kind of becoming really ubiquitous, right? Really thinking and seeing that mindset shift in folks from being, okay, I think of my credit union as these physical locations, to being, oh no, this is a trusted partner in my financial life that I've just got in my pocket, and I can pull it out, and just as if I'm interacting with a friend or a trusted family member, I can talk to my credit union and ask them, you know, maybe it's something as simple as like, should I afford this latte today? Like, cool, right. Like that's where we want to be. Or more like heavy hitting questions, you know, about like, is now the right time for me to buy a house? And having all of that serviced digitally instead of having to walk into a location and talk to somebody.
Well, does Alaska, I don't know anything about what internet's like up there, but does it have challenges with people accessing internet? I mean, this would be an interesting additional challenge, because here, you know, in the outside, like you say, we have internet is pretty ubiquitous. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have issues where your customers are just off the grid?
Yeah, so we do. When I moved up here as a kid, my family were military. That's how a lot of, that's how a lot of us end up here. Um, we were the most connected state in the union at the time, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So we had more folks online per capita than anywhere else in the country, which was really cool. I don't think that's accurate today, but it's definitely the legacy of connecting folks across distances is still there. We've got a branch in Nome, and this is internet that's like pumped in via satellite,
Mhm.
but we can still do, we can still call them via Zoom. So we do run into issues where we have folks who, yeah, they just don't have internet. So to us, that lifeline is always our member service center, our contact center. They can hop on a phone call and get those questions answered. And that's, we see us respond to those challenges kind of in other ways. Really focusing on things like uptime and really reducing like how much, right, the loading times for things. So really making sure that what we deliver is fast and quick and reliable. Um, we try and do our part there and create these alternative channels for folks to reach out to us. So yeah, you can pretty much do everything. It sounds so old school, but it really does take a lot to be able to basically do all of your banking through phone and snail mail. We can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. If you have to, right?
Yeah,
But you,
if you have to.
so well, isn't Elon Musk's, I don't know what his thing is called,
Yeah,
the
the
internet thing where he's
Starlink.
got like globalized internet. Is that going to be a boon to you guys? Because
Well, I don't know. We'll see. So if we start having more folks take on these Zoom appointments from the middle of nowhere.
yeah.
That's the dream, right? Like, they don't trust me to handle member interactions, which is good. I would talk. I would be way too talkative. I would never get anything done. But yeah, it'd be cool to like log in and have somebody be connected from like their fishing boat in some
Yeah.
river in the middle
Yeah.
of interior Alaska. And it's like, oh,
That'd be awesome.
yeah, show me what
Well, see,
your
since
kids
everybody
do.
is working from anywhere now, I mean, I know, what was it? It wasn't Costa Rica, but it was some Caribbean country was asking people to come down and live there for a year. So they were giving out special visas. What's the upside? Should I move to Alaska and move and work from there a year? I mean, is it a good place for remote digital nomads to go to?
So I'll see. I love Alaska. It's really awesome. If you're the type of person who likes to get outdoors, yes, Alaska is great.
Mhm.
Alaska is also really geographically isolated, so things
Mm.
are very expensive here. So I
Right.
guess it depends on what type of digital nomading you're doing. I know most of the most of the people I know who do that end up in places with super low cost of living. Sipping some nice beverages on beaches.
Right. So they're in like Thailand or a place like that where, so
Yeah.
the cost of living is pretty high then in Alaska.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be. We. It's odd that we like to think of like Hawaii as a bit of our like our sister state, but they're in a similar kind of boat where everything there has to be shipped in either by boat or by plane. We do have roads, but nothing comes up that way. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it's just expensive to get stuff up here. Also, to build anything, it's got to be prepped for the cold, extreme cold, and earthquakes. So just everything just costs more. So probably not the best place to be a digital nomad unless you're really got some lucrative digital. It's a little
Well, isn't it true that
lucrative
every
dream.
Alaskan gets paid? Like there's no state tax, but you guys actually get paid?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's no state income tax, which is pretty cool. One of the few states that doesn't have that. And yeah, every year, most years, each Alaskan gets what we call a permanent fund dividend. So yeah, so we get a little check, and I got to pull out my other soapbox. This is really cool. It's one of those neat things that Alaska did that was super smart. So when we wrote our constitution, our state constitution, all of the mineral and natural resource rights in is owned by the people of Alaska. So
Wow,
what we do,
fantastic.
yeah, super cool. That's our oil. That's our zinc. Um, so what we do is we let these companies, we lease them that plot of land for the privilege of extracting that natural resource. And so that those leases expire. And we, obviously we still tax them. So we take a huge chunk of that money from the profits from these leases, and we set it aside in what's called the permanent fund, basically a huge investment account for the state of Alaska.
Mhm.
And part of those dividends come out and they help pay for some government programs, but part of those dividends are set aside and distributed out as direct payments to Alaskans. So every year we get a check. Um, Good years, it's about $1,000. Sometimes they do crazy stuff and give us extra money.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I can't
Sometimes it's
imagine
less.
living in a state that actually pays you to live there. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's pretty cool. Um, my statistics might be a little out of date, but at least as of a couple years ago, most Alaskans were getting more money from the permanent fund dividend than they were paying out in taxes to the state
Fantastic.
or to their local municipalities. So
I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm,
don't
I'm,
expect
I'm
to get rich
seriously
off of
thinking
it.
about moving.
Or come on up. Yeah, we need people.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Thanks so much. I love the insights on the financial services and the insights on Alaska. And so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
The best way would be to find me on LinkedIn, Evan Mulcahy. It's pretty searchable. You'll find me. Credit Union one in Alaska. I'm there. You'll
Yeah.
find me. Yeah, that's the best way to connect. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I'll send me your bio and I'll put it in the show notes and we'll go from there. Thank you so much. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
Bye.
Bye.